Now that Nicole is out in the game, the first team I wanted to have a quick look at is of course going to be the Aloy teams, because obviously no one else is going to cover them. We're talking about particularly Aloy with Durin, because as it turns out, well, this team is gonna end up functioning a little bit differently to what we're used to because of some of the qualities of Aloy that I don't think I've really ever leaned into on this channel. I first approached this like I normally would, as an actual Meltloy team focusing on Aloy's damage. The idea would be to have someone like Nicole give her flat attack buff to both Aloy and Durin, so that both these characters can do about as much damage as they can. The team would thus rely on things that I've covered years ago, such as bomblet grouping with Kazuha, but what I've quickly discovered, besides the various DPS proportions of this team, is that for some reason it ended up being very, very easy to override whatever pyro aura that Aloy was actually melting off and start having the cryo aura that Durin would just start popping off with. And honestly, because of that, the goal of the team just kind of started to fall apart, which is a bit of a shame, as I was hoping to be able to play some Meltloy shenanigans with Nicole. You can ensure an almost permanent pyro aura by playing Burnloy, but you're still not really able to cater to Aloy's damage, as we won't have a bomblet grouper at that point like Kaz, so you're either doing charge attacks or relying on another weapon that I'll talk about later in the video. Hello everyone, welcome back. At the moment, I still don't have the Hexarray scroll set on Nicole, so everything that you're seeing here is, of course, just me using a Noblesse build that gives Nicole just a little bit over 4k attack with Pyro Resonance. I'm relatively certain that once I actually have an Hexarray scroll set for Nicole, things, of course, will get noticeably better. But in the meantime, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more Genshin Impact action. Abandoning the whole Aloy DPS thing, we turn our attention to the idea of running Aloy as the Cryo Enabler. And we could continue to rely on the same methods that I've talked about in the past to ensure Ice Rush is active, which I think we'll need because this can easily maintain the Cryo Aura, otherwise you're going to have to be really fast on those charge attacks. Or, I'm going to talk about Sacrificial Bow. Sac Bow Aloy is actually a bit of a secret technique that Aloy mains have been using whenever they want to play teams that simply can't fit in a bomblet grouper like Kaz or even Sucrose. Because the thing about Sac Bow is that the initial grenade and the bomblets themselves can actually trigger the sack bow effect, but on top of that, generally speaking, unless you miss or the target decides to just run away from your bomblets, you'll get at least 2 coil stacks per skill, so using your skill twice tends to result in Ice Rush. Because of her skill's long 20-second cooldown, I do recommend just spamming her skill as quickly as you can. But if you happen to notice getting Ice Rush before you even see the sack bow effect trigger, and thus get your skill back, then I recommend holding back on using that free skill from the sack bow so that you can actually just use it later on what is effectively a shorter cooldown. But essentially, unlike other Aloy teams where we'd swap from Aloy to someone else like Kaz to get that bomblet grouping, in this case, once we get to Aloy's part of the rotation, she pretty much gets to stay on field until, of course, the Ice Rush is gone. One of the funniest things about Aloy is that she also happens to have an A1 passive that almost nobody would remember even exists. Hell, even amongst the Aloy mains, we're more worried, of course, about getting that Ice Rush, which is her A4 passive. So let me remind you about something called her A1 passive, which is whenever Aloy gets a coil stack, she gets 16 attack percent for herself, but more importantly, the team gets 8 attack percent, which obviously isn't much, but if you're Nicole, doesn't have 4k attack yet, but she's close, you could potentially change your rotation around a little bit to go Aloy into Nicole somehow, and this would help basically fill up the gap between having the maximum attack buff from Nicole and I guess not. But on top of that, your Durin is also going to get that attack buff as well. Look, it's not much, but it's certainly not nothing. Man, I really wish that someone at HOYOverse would just take, like, I don't know, 3 minutes out of their lunch break and just get into Aloy's kit, give her skill 2 charges, change the cooldown to 10 seconds per charge. I'm not even asking for, like, an Aloy buff as comprehensive as Chi-Chi's or Miko's in the coming patches. Just a small thing like this, I feel like would just be going unimaginably far to solve Aloy's, in my opinion, one singular problem. If you're going to play Melt Enabler Aloy, I think running Noblesse just makes the most sense. Aloy's skill generates a lot of cryo particles, so getting her ult back, especially with an ER substat weapon like Sack Bow, is very bloody easy. So using her ult early into her part of the rotation can give, of course, everyone another 20% attack, so we're talking about a total team attack buff of 28%. At that point, obviously, we'd want Nicole on the Hexarray scroll set, which I don't have yet, But once I get that sorted out, the team should be a fair bit stronger. Durin, on the other hand, can of course stay on the Hexarray DPS set. The big question is going to be the final slot. Now, I have tried Sucrose to try and get VV Red Shred and EM share. That does sound good on paper, but I found that because her buffs don't last that long, the team gets a little bit too finicky, especially when it comes to trying to refresh the Pyro Red Shred. I found that my C2 Shillinen, big surprise, is still of course the strongest option for me. On top of yet another attack percent buff on Durin and Nicole, Aloy can also get a 60% crit damage buff, which would mean that her stats are pretty much almost the same as if she were to run a DPS weapon like Thundering Pulse or First Great Magic. They are of course crit damage substat weapons, but without Shillinen on the team. Otherwise, we are of course leveraging the 15-second Red Shred for the duration, or even also the 15-second scroll buff actually, for the duration of Aloy's on-field time. There are some other alternative Cryo characters that you can play. Ayaka's charge attack seems to work. Her ult is of course better, but I think it's a little bit overkill. Still, Aminoma is, I think, pretty much needed if you want to rely on her ult a little bit more. Charlotte has a few abilities that can spam a lot of Cryo app to maintain the aura. I'm not entirely sure if Rizlo can handle this role since he kinda only has punching. I suppose his ult can also be used as an emergency button, but it does do 5 Cryo hits, but 2 of them only, I think, apply Cryo, so I'm not entirely sure again if that's going to work. Skirk does exist, but without Cryo reactions that aren't called Melt, the 45 Serpent Subtlety is pretty much gone in a few seconds, so naturally I find her to be pretty ass in this team. I mean, of course, she's not going to be doing any damage as well, because anyone who knows how Skirk works knows that when you have a team that has, like, no other Cryo or Hydro characters, that pretty much is antithetical to how Skirk performs. There is also Chongyun. Now, Cryo infusing Durin does in fact work, but I feel like that kind of ruins the point of having Nicole in the first place. Nicole's biggest strength is being able to buff the off-fielder's damage, but with Chongyun, the off-fielder is now the on-fielder, so you might as well bring C5 Bennett. But if your Bennett is C6, then you're cooked, because he'll actually override the Cryo infusion with his Pyro infusion. So if you have C6 Bennett, which I think most of us do, sucks to be you. One last thing. Friend of the channel, GSDHow, was wondering if this was going to turn into a whole I'm not going to get Lohen because I already have Lohen video by having Aloy. This is kind of the same thing that I did with Risley. But if anything, I think I kind of just ended up sort of saying that if your entire goal in getting Lohen was to have a Cryo on-fielder who can enable Melt Durin teams, well, it seems like Aloy, or hell, even Charlotte, well, these characters are probably the options that you already have. Now, I haven't paid that much attention to Lohen's kit. I hear he's supposed to be the quote-unquote Cryo on-fielder for a Melt Durin team, so ostensibly he'll probably be doing far more damage himself. But I'm still not feeling any real desire, personally, to get him, especially if the rumors of an opportunity, well, actually not even rumors, now the confirmed rumors of an opportunity to get my final Miko constellation are true. Well, and that's even less of a reason for me to actually spend those Primo Gems on Lohen himself. Let me know what you think about all of this in the comments below. Look, this is yet another way to play Aloy, but personally, I think I'll go back to sticking with Freeze-Loy with Escoffier, or it's actually French-Loy with Escoffier, since that does seem to be a rather strong team. I think DPS-wise I get similar results to this team though, which is kind of hilarious, so we're sort of bouncing back and forth in this regard. Although, look, we don't have that much content that seems to be favoring Cryo, so it would be hilarious if I can actually clear Stygian with Melt Durin in this regard. Highly unlikely. I'm probably going to need a bit more damage from my Cryo character, so Aloy might not cut it in that regard. But at least in things like Spiral Abyss, if I actually have a crack at it, I can probably make it work. So we'll just see how that turns out. But anyway, let me know what list in the comments below. How are you playing your Melt Durin? Let me know in the comments. Maybe you actually are going to be gunning for Lohen, in which case, good luck. But I think for some of us, especially the Charlotte mains, for example, this might be the time for you. But do also let me know in the comments if you're able to make it work with Risley, if you actually have him. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this. If you like this video, hit that like button, subscribe for more Genshin Impact action, and until next time, I'll see you guys later. Thanks for watching. Bye.
Ever seen one of these?
That's more like it. Some results about reverse.
You're stuck now.
Great. Cold resolve.
I think not. I left it alone. for ya. This one's a fighter.
I expected this. So you'd rather wallow in this rotten, decaying world?